Hi and welcome to my review of The Goodies, the complete BBC collection. Today we're up to Invasion of the Moon Creatures. Graeme is asked by the government to set up a British lunar project to send a rabbit to the moon. But when the rabbits don't come back, he sends Bill and Tim up to check on them. But the rabbits on the moon have not only multiplied, they've evolved and now have plans to take over the world using Bill and Tim as their brainwashed slaves. Highlights of this episode for me included Bill laughing again. He really seems to be having a great time during the recording of these episodes. I loved Graeme's tests with the rabbits, his scientific experiments. I also loved Bill's bitchiness towards Graeme, and I really love that they launched the rocket from their office. The rocket command is actually just their office with some computer banks in it. I also really loved Graeme's radio telescope, which is just a telescope with a radio in it. And I have to say, any episode in which Graeme plays a scientist always gives me a bit of a thrill. There are so many fun science fiction references in this episode, starting with 2001, the Stanley Kubrick movie, particularly in the music references and also in the capsule sequence with the zero gravity stuff. Another really fun sci-fi reference that I really enjoyed was the sight of the TARDIS whizzing by as they were flying through space, and also when Graeme is trying to tune back in on the capsule camera, he accidentally stumbles onto John Pertwee and then changes the channel again. One of my favourite bits in this episode, and I think this just shows the Goodies' inventiveness so beautifully, is the way when they're communicating back and forth between the space capsule and Graeme's base on Earth, that they say beep after every communication, and I just found this hilarious. I also love the bit where Bill opens the window to try and get a better photo of the meteor shower. There was another fun reference to Monty Python in this episode where Graeme's switching TV channels and then turns them off again. The moon set in this episode looks amazing, and I was trying to work out whether it's an indoor set or an actual quarry filmed at night. I wasn't quite sure. It looks like it's shot on film, and that made me think it must have been somewhere exterior, but I'm not really sure. Another very fun and creative gag was the moon rock. That's actually a stick of rock. A lot of 1984 references in this episode too, with the Big Bunny character, who's actually quite disturbing. And I love the bit when the rabbits started singing the Star Trek theme while Big Bunny went into the Star Trek opening monologue. There are really so many highlights in this episode. And another one for me was Graeme trying to explain the absolutely insane scenario to the army who'd come to answer his call for help. But I guess this episode's greatest cultural reference is the Clockwork Orange parody that Bill and Tim do dressed as rabbits. And I think they call it the transistorized carrot, complete with slow motion violence on the street. This segment is also kind of disturbing. I found it interesting and a refreshing change that Graeme is actually the good guy in this episode. And another fantastic touch was the very Warner Brothers cartoon-like gag with the holes in the ground. And Warner Brothers is another reference that comes up in this episode in the Bugs Bunny stuff that they're all doing. And I think this episode does reinforce what I was talking about in the last episode in terms of the Goodies and their love of cultural references. And in this episode, all those cultural references work really well, and they're such a big part of the comedy. But I guess that's not always going to be the case, and some of those references are going to be a little more problematic to us today. This episode's guest stars included the astronomer Patrick Moore, and also Roland MacLeod, the British comedy actor who you might have seen in Ripping Yarns and A Fish Called Wanda. I did look him up, and it turns out he made 8 appearances in the goodies, which is why he does seem so familiar, I guess. This is another really strong episode, and I felt it was the perfect execution of a really wild premise and some great gags. I remember when I was younger, this episode always felt slightly disturbing to me, like the episode with the army of babies. It has those kind of disturbing elements in it. I always found Graeme's portrayal of Big Bunny to be really creepy, and clearly it was intended to be. When you're referencing 1984, Clockwork Orange, the Quatermass Experiment, clearly you're trying to bring some more dark and dystopian sci-fi ideas into your show. Who else could combine all these disparate elements into a hilarious half hour of comedy? So far, season 4 is going from strength to strength to me. I hope you'll join me next time when we move on to Hospital for Hire. Thanks so much for watching today, and I'll see you then. Bye.